Look, I'm just going to say it straight up. If you feel like you're constantly getting talked over, ignored in group conversations, or watching your ideas get nodded past while some other guy says basically the same thing 5 minutes later and everyone suddenly cares, it's probably not your ideas. I know that's not what you want to hear, because it feels like it should be about the actual content, the effort, the intelligence behind what you're saying. It's mostly not. It's a handful of signals happening around your words, most of which you're not even consciously aware you're sending, and they're the entire reason the exact same point lands completely differently depending on who says it. Let's break down what those signals actually are, because once you can see them in yourself, you can start shutting them off one at a time. You really only have two ways of operating here. You can keep doing what you're doing, assuming that eventually people will just notice how good your ideas are on their own merit, and keep getting quietly frustrated every time that doesn't happen. Or you can actually look at how you're presenting yourself and fix the mechanics underneath it, which is way less comfortable in the short term, but actually solves the problem instead of just complaining about the symptom. Let's go with option 2. First thing, listen to how you actually open your sentences when you're about to say something that matters to you. If you catch yourself saying, "This might be a dumb idea, but," or "I could be wrong here, but," or "Sorry to bring this up again, but," stop right there, because every single one of those phrases is doing the exact same damage. You're telling the room, before you've even finished your thought, that whatever's coming next probably isn't worth much weight, and here's the part that actually hurts: people believe you. Not because they're trying to be dismissive, just because you told them to discount it, so they did automatically, without even thinking it through consciously. You're training every room you walk into to skip past your own point before it ever gets a fair shot. Cut the disclaimer completely. Say the actual thing. If it's wrong, someone will tell you. That's fine. That's literally how good ideas get tested. Just give it the chance to land at full weight first instead of pre-apologizing it into background noise. Next, pay attention to your timing, because this one's subtle, and almost nobody catches it in themselves without being told to look for it. If you're jumping in fast, right after someone else stops talking, almost like you're worried the window's going to close if you don't grab it that second, that speed is reading as reactive, and reactive gets automatically weighted lower every time, regardless of what you're actually saying. Compare that to leaving one small beat, not a dramatic pause, just half a second where it looks like you're actually thinking instead of firing back on instinct. That tiny gap changes how the exact same sentence lands. Try it deliberately this week in a real conversation that actually matters to you, one beat before you respond, and just watch how differently people react to a point you've probably made before without it fully landing. Your body's giving away just as much as your words, maybe more, and you're probably not tracking it in real time at all. Shoulders pulled in slightly, eyes checking the room right after you talk instead of holding steady, your voice trailing up at the end of a statement like it's secretly turned into a question. You can say the most confident sentence in the world and completely undercut it with any single one of these, because people read body language faster than they process actual words. That's not something you can argue your way around. It's just how everyone's wired underneath the surface. Keep your shoulders where they already are. Let your voice land flat instead of climbing up at the end. Don't immediately scan the room for a reaction the second you stop talking. Let the sentence just sit there for a second before you go checking how it landed. Here's another one that trips a lot of guys up without them noticing. If you're constantly saying it's nothing, don't worry about it. It wasn't a big deal about stuff that genuinely cost you real time, real effort, real sacrifice. You're quietly training everyone around you to expect effortless output from you permanently without ever really crediting what it actually took. People calibrate how much you're worth largely based on what you tell them you're worth, and if you keep insisting everything's easy for you, they'll believe it completely and stop factoring your actual effort into how they treat you at all. You don't need to become someone who complains constantly either. That's a different, equally bad problem. Just stop reflexively minimizing the stuff that actually was hard. Let it be described honestly once in a while instead of automatically shrinking it the second someone notices. And the biggest one, probably, if you're folding the second anyone pushes back on you even slightly, going straight to "yeah, no, you're totally right, good point," when nothing about your actual position changed, you just didn't want 10 more seconds of friction sitting in the air, you're teaching everyone around you something real, that your positions are negotiable the instant any resistance shows up at all, which basically means there was never really a position there in the first place, just a suggestion dressed up to look like one. You don't need to swing the other way and get combative about it either. That overcorrection creates a completely different problem. Just hold the actual thought for a second when someone pushes back. Ask yourself honestly whether they actually changed your mind, or whether you're just avoiding the discomfort of disagreeing out loud for a few more seconds. Only fold if the honest answer is the first one. I'll be straight with you. I used to do basically all 5 of these at once, and I only really noticed it because someone flat out told me my ideas were fine. My delivery was the actual problem, which stung to hear at the time but turned out to be completely accurate. I went back through a stretch of meetings in my head after that and realized how often I'd opened with some version of "this is probably nothing but," rushed my point out the second someone else stopped talking, and folded the moment anyone so much as raised an eyebrow. None of that was about the quality of what I was actually saying. It was entirely about how I was handing it over, pre-apologized, rushed, and abandoned at the first sign of resistance. Fixing the delivery, without changing a single thing about how good or bad my actual ideas were, completely changed how those same ideas got received. And honestly, it took a lot longer than a single week to actually stick, closer to a few months of consciously catching myself before it stopped feeling like effort and started feeling like just how I talk now. There's one more thing worth mentioning, and it's less about individual sentences and more about a pattern across a whole conversation. If you notice yourself constantly agreeing out loud while someone else is still talking, the little yeah, totally, right, exactly, scattered through their sentences before they've even finished the thought, that's another version of the same problem showing up in a different shape. It feels like active listening, that's usually the intention behind it, but it actually reads as impatience, like you're rushing them along so you can get to your own turn. People who get taken seriously tend to let a full sentence land before responding to it at all, even non-verbally. And that patience communicates something the constant verbal nodding never quite manages to, that you're actually processing what's being said instead of just waiting your turn to speak again. Try going quiet the next time someone's mid-thought, no filler agreement, just actual silence until they're done, and notice how much more weight your response carries once you finally do reply. Don't try to fix all 5 of these at the same time. You'll end up overthinking every sentence you say for a week straight and come across stiff, which just creates a new version of the same problem. Pick whichever one made you wince a little reading through this. That's usually the one doing the most damage in your specific case right now. Practice just that one this week in low-stakes conversations first, work, friends, family, wherever's easiest to start. Once it's automatic, move to the next one. None of this is about becoming louder or more aggressive or turning into a different person. It's mostly about subtracting habits that are quietly undercutting you before your actual point ever gets a fair shot, rather than adding some new confident persona on top of the same old habits. Strip them out one at a time, and the respect you've been chasing this whole time stops needing to be chased, because the room starts extending it automatically, the same way it's probably been automatically withholding it this whole time without you fully understanding why. None of this is going to feel natural the first few times, and I want to be honest about that instead of pretending it clicks instantly. Cutting the disclaimer off a sentence you've been softening for years is going to feel exposed, almost rude, even though it's neither of those things. It just feels that way because you've built years of habit around cushioning everything you say. That discomfort fades faster than you'd expect once you've actually done it a handful of times and watched nothing bad happen as a result. And once it fades, you'll probably notice the same thing I did, that the ideas were never really the problem, they were just getting buried under so much unnecessary softening that nobody downstream could ever feel their actual weight.